my laptop is still shot, so you know what? I always thought that I wouldn't be affected by shit like this. Sorry, I need to like position myself better. Oh. So yeah, I'm gonna just relax a bit and try to just talk, I guess. So the thing is, right? My laptop has been a little bit like yeah, some days it just won't start up, and some days it starts up again, and I don't know what to do. You know, a lot of these like computer stores, I take it to them and they say they could do nothing, and then you wonder if that's only to make you buy a new one, from their store. You never know. But again, just like the last time, if Twitch has not deleted the audio yet, is that you have to take it easy on yourself. Take it easier because like things eventually do fade. Things eventually do come to an end. And that's okay. Well, it's not okay if you're super depressed and shit. But you know, I always thought that I could power through shit, right? And for a long while, especially when I was younger, I could. But now these things, man, these sort of things just make me like it stresses you. You can feel it, especially when you start to become aware of your own emotions and all that, right? Because when you were younger, if the cap fits, wear it, right? So that means if it applies to you, maybe you can relate to it. If it doesn't, you can't relate to it, you can't relate, right? So here's the thing, man. As I started to allow myself to become more in tune with my body and with my, not really body, but more with my emotions, my mental state, if you will, that's when I really, that's when I really started to feel it, you know. In the past, I would kept like logicking my way out of shit, right? So as to not feel bad, you know. I would justify it. I would explain it. I was rationalizing. Rationalizing was a big deal for me, right? Was a big, coping mechanism for me. And yeah, that was what I did, right? And here's the thing. Now it's just like it's almost like, right? Have you ever watched these documentaries or some piece on maybe YouTube, right? About people, or maybe you're on Reddit or something and you read um, some comments about this, where people who have been like deaf all their lives, or and they got a procedure or some sort of hearing aid that allowed them to hear, and they couldn't fucking like stand it, and they'd rather go deaf for the rest of their lives. It's kind of, and I hate to say it's kind of like that, In the past, I didn't allow myself to feel because, like, all my childhood was just disappointment after disappointment, and sort of like stifling after stifling. You know, again, like compared to some war-torn country somewhere is probably not a big deal, but I'm just talking for me, and perhaps for some of you. No, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. Because now in the title, I have some things in the title written, right? Are written like dark truths, like inconvenient truths that depressed people, very depressed people, you know, don't really think about. And the thing is, right, this is not to kind of like depress people more who are already depressed to kill themselves or something. But you know what? This is my channel, and this is kind of like what I do to kind of like, I don't know, man. Maybe it'll make me feel better if I vent it out, you know? So, the first dark truth, or inconvenient truth, right? And that comes to my head, if you will, is that sometimes you can do your best, and especially as a person who's, let's just say, start every single day below baseline, right? And you have to spend that extra effort to just get to baseline before even like attempting to accomplish anything above the baseline. You can be doing your best, and it still won't be enough. And that is just a dark fucking truth, you know? It just won't be enough in the context of it won't, it might not measure up to just some haphazard effort by someone who's just doing it like it's a nothing burger or a quote unquote normal person, right? And that's just not to make you feel bad, feel worse, and not. It's just, I think it's the truth, you know? And that's why I always say take it easy on yourself, especially if you're a depressed person or whatever. Like, I wish I could impress upon you this thing where, yes, I'm talking about this very depressing shit, right? But at the same time, I do it in the context of just like informing, self-venting, and also saying like, is not to make you feel bad as much as it is just saying facts, you know? You, if you are depressed and you're like severely, you know it, right? Where you can do your very absolute best, and it still might not measure up to some haphazard job some normal person is not is doing, like just because they're lazy. And I'm not saying like, I want to tell you it's okay. And here's the second part to the first point that is dark, is that you may do your best and still not measure up to what's normal. And it's just the way it is, you know? And I'm not saying you have to you probably have to accept that, but I'm not saying it in the context of, hey, you shouldn't make something of yourself, you know? Of course you can, of course you should, but again, if I say that, would that overwhelm you, you know? So the first point is that you can do your absolute best and still won't be enough to measure up to the normal person's haphazard job. And that's just what it is. That's the dark truth, that's the inconvenient truth, you know? If you're like uber depressed because you have to spend that much more effort to just get to baseline, you know? And the second thing, and again, like, this is more of the blame happy side, BLAME, right? In quotes, of course, in air quotes, is that, and this is, I think, a very dark fact, is that, you know, kids who are, you know, are obviously depressed or have mental issues or whatever, you can see it, like, and you always see these like documentaries or interview pieces of these crying parents saying, oh, I couldn't have known, they didn't tell me, blah 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 blah. I'm going to be very real with you. They know. They know, first of all, they know, and second of all, they also have fostered an environment in their home to which their kids did not feel it was safe or beneficial or useful to vent or to open up to their parents. I'm telling you, they fucking know. You know, parents are the stewards of like their kids' mental health in a way. And I'm going to be very dark and very real with you. Maybe, and I think a lot of these parents know, right? And or else they might not be doing enough. You know, those who are like, I would never know. Yeah. First of all, you never know because, like, first of all, you probably knew deep inside your soul, right? Second of all, you probably already fostered some kind of environment in your home that your kids just don't see the usefulness, the need, the you know, they just can't seem to visualize themselves to open up to you. You know, the one who's supposed to support them the most. And third of all, it might be the case, right? That what was it? Like there's a lot of parents who do this where they keep living their lives thinking it'll go away. That sort of parents, usually Asian parents, I can speak from personal experience, they keep thinking this will go away as long as we keep living normally as usual. Not address it, it'll go away, right? And the third thing, I had it in my head, but I just can't for the fuck of me remember, right? The third thing, what's the third thing? Let me think for a while, right? I can guarantee you most of these like people actually know. They know. They just don't want to address it. That's probably the first point, right? Okay, either way, the third point is that, oh, you know, these people who are crying and saying, oh, I would have, I never known. Is that the third point is that, are you that uninvolved in your kid's life to the point where you didn't know your kid had mental problems, mental turmoil, inner turmoil to the point where they killed themselves? Like, what's not clicking here? And the thing that makes me so angry is that, like, again, like, I don't know why, and for the longest time it's been like this. They expect the kid, especially in Asian settings, right? And I know there's like similar cultures like the Balkans, like the Nigerians, Africans, right? Where somehow the kid is supposed to be the one managing, not micromanaging, like regulating their parents' mental health and emotions instead of the other way around, you know? Because basically these parents just fucking pop out, you know, a mental, emotional punching bag from their vaginas, right? Or, you know, they basically pop out a kid to use as a punching bag, right? And a lot of them won't admit it, but these 3 points of the second point, again, like, I can guarantee you, these parents know it. These parents know that their kids are struggling, right? That their kids are not feeling great, that their kids have mental problems, that their kids are feeling depressed, right? I know mine definitely did. They definitely ignored it, and not only ignored it, they kept thinking that, oh, once Lorenzo goes into the career that we coerced and groomed and forced him to do, he'll come out with a degree and he'll earn so much that he will forgive us, or he will not even forgive us. They probably never thought that they were wrong. That he will thank us. But now, the reason I'm here venting to you is because that mentality is like building some sort of mansion without a proper foundation, a good foundation, an actual foundation that the kid will build for himself or herself. And that's where I get so fucking angry now, because like they even held me back, right? And the things are that they held me back from was such pillars of foundations that now I can't socialize, right? Like I don't even have the sort of like and these are very weird things to kind of like say here, because like probably people who were socialized, they were quote unquote normal, they will probably listen to me and just think that I'm just like saying these to blame people, as if like, you can't just sit in your armchair and tell people to just be independent when their literal lives, all their lives, independence has been the thing that their parents curbed systematically since they were born. You can't just, you know, you can't just tell a tree to suddenly grow flower. Well, that's probably a horrible example, but you can't just like. It's like my life has been a sort of like mixture of taking a horse to water and forcing it to drink. You know, plus also like what they forced me to drink was basically not. It's like forcing a carnivorous animal to eat grass all its life and suddenly demand that it become ferocious, demand it go hunt, demand it eat meat. It's kind of like that, the vibe, you know. So the first point was that you can do as much as you can and it will still not be enough or measure up to the normal person's half-assed job. And that's just what it is. The second thing is that, this is your parents probably know. The people who should be there to love you the most probably know. They might even have been the one who caused it. And the third point, you know, because depression, it's like depression to sadness is what joy is to happiness, right? It's something more profound. It's something that's like a mixture of emotion, environment, you know, alignment with yourself, right? Like, if you force a creative kid to just do math all the damn time and just demonize, not only that, you also demonize their fucking talent, their God given talent, which is makes them feel alive, have them, like, that is the essence of their being. I hope you go to hell. Sorry, that was a bit strong. But especially if you're a parent and God has already made your life so much easier by showing that you, earlier on, what your kid gravitates towards. You don't even need to figure out a lot of things. Like, boom, the kid's creative. You can just supplement that. You can, you know, instead, a lot of parents, because they want a kid who's high achieving, who's in the STEM fields, all that, that bring big money. Yeah, a lot of these kids, got their talents, what makes them feel alive, demonized out of them, shamed out of them, They, again, because it's the essence of their being, guess what? If their parents succeed in that, their kids will feel deep to the essences of their soul that, you know what? And it will be baked into them, right? It will be baked into them. And that comes probably my third or fourth point is that these sort of things, right? Depression or whatever. By the moment you notice it, is probably there for a very long time, right? And you probably need to look into your life, what deep-seated, call it trauma, call it like, it's like a multitude of factors in your life that contribute and mix into the soup that made it disgusting. You know what I mean? You know, maybe demonizing of your talents, for example, when you were a very young kid. That will affect you very severely down the line as you grow up, right? But you may be thinking in hindsight, it's whatever. Now I can power through it. Or maybe you think, okay, you know what, I can power through this toxic behavior, this toxic aspect of my parent or whatever, but not a load of everything that made you feel basically disgusted with life. I think depression is almost like a sort of disgust, mental disgust against this entirety of what you're living now, you know? And it can make you sick, and this is probably like the fourth thing is that I am telling you because women are more sensitive by nature and they do get sick from toxic households. If I get sick, I am telling you, if you're a female, you I want you to be very gracious with yourself because I'm telling you, man, if I get sick, you girls out there, you women out there, you ladies out there, you sure as hell shouldn't blame yourself or feel shitty about yourself, when you get sick for quote unquote no reason. If you're in a toxic household, toxic situation, all that shit, right? And maybe even a residual, you know? You need to work it out. You need to work this shit out of your system. You can get sick. It's kind of like my fourth point. You can get sick from depression. You can. Part of it is that you stop caring for yourself in a way, right? It's not even something you can quote unquote control because it's like you slowly wither away. You slowly like the cliche things that they say that food and whatever just flavors fade away. What once made you feel fun and joyful, like games and whatever, you just don't even want to boot them up anymore, and all that shit. It happened to me, right? And and I get sicker and sicker every day, right? I have to adjust it. I have to like be aware of it, like, and it's like when you're too just you can't you're too tired for anything and everything, you know. But you have to push on, and again, I don't think it's enough, right? And I even forgot what I just said, but the fifth point that just came to my head is that the world and this is the darkest one yet, and I don't want to trigger whatever that means anyone with this, so if you're not primed, if you're not ready to hear what's next, you can just click off or tap off at this point. Is that the world in the conventional sense doesn't care. They do not care, and this is not saying in the way that it's like, oh, look at me, I'm suffering, look at me, that sort of context, that sort of vibe. No, but they do not care. They think you can power through it. They'll have also, like, the sort of like story of Job from the Bible. I still think it's fucked up that you know God and Satan decide to basically make a bet on Job, and God starts to allow Satan to visit all kinds of calamities on his most faithful follower, you know, and then Job's friends, three of them would come and start criticizing him, saying like, you must have done something wrong to invite the wrath of God. You must have been not faithful enough to invite the wrath of God. And I don't remember the third reason, but this is literally kind of like that for people who are depressed, right? Severely depressed, and a lot of people do not see the need, again, to tell it to the outside world. People do not want to find out that you have depression unless they just stumble upon it and they kind of like got it clicking together. Somehow, talking about it, just saying, like, as in you tell people you have depression to their face, begets some sort of like bad taste in their mouth. And I wonder if it's the primal sort of like thing in our brains that is like, oh, that signals weakness and signals a lot of inconvenience to me. And my first, even though I'm a kind person, my first sort of like raw feeling that hits me is disgust and annoyance. Oh, great, now I know this. Oh, great, you have to tell me this. Now I have to have like this special place in my brain, just like even occupy more of my brain to kind of like accommodate myself around you. And this is why I think, and I am very sure, the whole world doesn't give a shit you have depression. Again, I'm not saying in the sort of like so-called, I don't know, in America they call them libtard or whatever leftist or whatever, that they scream that their brain trigger. No, I'm not saying in that sense. I'm saying that, and I guess this is kind of like my final point, maybe, I don't know, is that you need help the most, and you will be given the help the least. Sometimes it feels like that. And the thing is, right, at a certain point, you will live to the point where the only thing that could save you is an olive branch by someone else. And the problem is, because if you're depressed and you start to wither away, literally from society, how can you take that? How can you take that? If you wither away from people, how would people be able to reach you with that olive branch? And this is kind of like the cruel irony of being depressed, is that you probably need help the most, and you are the one, not the most, of course there are other people who need help, but sorry, I'm just like, English is not there today, but you need an olive branch from the most, and you are the one who is least likely to reach it because of how depression works, right? I have 0 friends now, 0, and that's kind of like almost also like pulling away because of the guilt, the shame that you feel like within yourself, the absolute shame. And of course, I'm always very real with you. I blame my parents for this, because they were like, oh, your friends only want there to kind of like say good things to you, and they're gonna pull us apart, and all that. And even as an adult, that's wrong. Something has been baked within you that you pull away from friends because of course you're also kind of like ashamed of your existence now, because you're not the doctor, lawyer, engineer that groomed you to be. And you want to do a job, but you don't know what to do. You can't even perform in your parents' fucking family business, in the most mundane fucking work and shit. And it's like, how in the world Are you going to survive? So the best thing to do right now is to just hunker down and survive as long as you can until you find a way out. And you know, for you, you probably can't see a way out, especially, again, like, okay, even if you're logical like me, I was like logical. Right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna hunker down and I'm gonna like find a way to get out of here. And my talents have all been traumatized out of me. And it's like, oh shit, what do I do? Probably nothing. I'm probably gonna die here. Way before my parents might, like, and the thing is, right, I even have Tourette's sometimes where I'm like, I cannot help but say out loud, I want to die. Today was one, it's not one of those days, so I'm not gonna say it too much, but, oh, I have days where I'm like, I wanna die. I'll say it out loud. And, and you're gonna have days, like, if you have days like these, where you just can't help but verbalize it, I want you to be gracious to yourself. I don't want you to fight it. I want you to just like accept that you said it and immediately have this sort of like mental state where you're like, okay, I'm going to be kind to myself today. Okay? Because you, more than anyone else in the room, probably deserve it. And of course, this is saying in a context where I'm a horrible sort of like in a horrible state because of my parents. I'll just be straight with you. I know this will put a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. For those who don't know the context, who have not lived my life, who have like, again, like you might have a different personality too. You may have a fiery, rebellious personality, right? You might have parents more intense or less intense than mine. I don't care. I actually care, but the one thing that I wished in this life that I had is the capacity to actually not care, right? To actually not be affected. Because in the past, I felt like a Superman, not being affected, but in actuality, I was just like avoiding a lot of these feelings, mental things, emotional things that I should have processed in my head, in myself, before moving on. It was just like me rationalizing away things so that I wouldn't duly process these things in myself, right? And now, even if I process them, it's like too late, because it's like it has affected my life to the point where I can't find a job in a way, right? Maybe if I'm in America, I might have a bit of a chance, but for now, So here's the thing. The last point I'll make, which is something I just said, right? I might not remember it at this moment, right? What did I just say? About how process it, blah blah blah. Oh, this is dark. The last point I'll make is that there is a point of no return. And this is a very pessimistic view, but I genuinely think it's true, right? Is that there is a point of no return. You can only hold on to that cliff for so long before you lose strength and you let go, right? And this is a very dark truth, and I've seen this happen to people, right? They hold on until they couldn't anymore, and people would say that all kinds of bullshit about how, and the thing is, a lot of people who are affected by this think that they're a waste of oxygen, that they're a black hole of resources. So they fucking off themselves instead of, risking making you, a friend or whatever, into a codependent relationship because they need a lot. They know they need a lot of, call it support, call it whatever you will. They know they need it a lot, to the point it almost feels like a drain for it, a black hole, a sinkhole, and they feel hopeless, and that's how they die. So the thing is, right, and this is kind of like a carry on from one of the last points, is that, you know, people do not care, and those people who care, right, there's a point, just like there's a no point of no return, there's also a point that other people can tolerate. Ever listen to someone say, I cannot, like, at a certain point, you know, he refused to help himself. I'm not saying that's not true, or I'm saying that, like, that's probably one of the perspectives, or that's, I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm going to be very real with you. That's just a way of saying I'm out. This is getting too intense, too exhausting for me, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not saying you're, like, they're entitled to your mental health or your life. So whatever, you want to, and I'm not guilting you into staying, if it gets too intense for you. Like, I'm just saying these are the facts, Okay, if you kind of, like, cannot handle it anymore, or you become resentful or whatever of a depressed friend that just won't get depressed, just won't get undepressed, and you want to fucking leave, right? You have to take care of yourself too, right? But this is why I think, like, there is a point of no return, and there's a point of, like, enough tolerating, if that's what you mean. And a lot of people, when they have friendships with people like these, I think they have the wrong sort of, like, again, sometimes, man, being depressed is just a sinkhole. If you become friends with one with the right mentality, with the right interactions, right, they will feel worthless, because it's like, look at you, well-adjusted adult. And if you interact with in a sort of, like, wrong mentality, that it becomes codependent, it becomes maybe, toxic, whatever the fuck it may be, eventually it will just sour the relationship. And the depressed person might feel like, hey, I'm making this bad again because I'm just a fucking mental sinkhole. And this is why a lot of, like, depressed people just feel so unworthy, and this is why, when you feel yourself becoming a sinkhole, it's like almost like a point of no return, because, like, you are so not really needy in a way, like, and these are just dark truths, man, I think. This is not to discourage anyone from living. This is not encouraging anyone to off themselves. I'm just wanting you to kind of, like, accept this for what it is, and to be gracious to yourself. Because depression is like a sum of a lot of things in your life, instead of just, like, this one thing, It can be this one thing, but this one thing may be something that has accumulated over time. It almost always has, It accumulates over time throughout your life, and it becomes, like, depression again, you know. Depression to sadness is like what joy is to happiness. Joy is being fulfilled. Happiness is just, like, being happy at the moment, and perhaps being joyful is always happy. But being happy isn't always joyful, because it's more than that. Being depressed is always, like, almost saddening, and perhaps you can define it as like just apathy, and that's okay too. But being sad doesn't necessarily always equate to depression. You know where I'm going with this. You know this is true. The thing is, the people who put you in this position, man, and I'm telling you, a lot of it starts early. They say the first bullies in your household is very likely your very own parents, which is tragic. I wonder if my laptop will switch on. Probably not. Oh, it seems like it switches on. It has the Republic of Gamers, like, logo on it. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like I need to remove the password thing now, and I'm going to have to, like, save some passwords and shit. I'm just... Why does it turn on now? Will it, like, turn off the moment Well, I don't know, man. I have to start saving money for a real good rig, which I'm earning minimum wage now, so it's like, shit, what do I do, That's part of the thing that probably contributes to my depression, if you will. I don't know. I'm probably gonna WhatsApp it. I have a series of codes on here. Do I back this up? How do I back this up? Okay, so basically I'm going to take this and put it into this USB. Oh yeah, the 2FA code. I have an SSD and a hard drive. I wonder what I can do. Okay, new desktop. Yep, I'm going to just do that. Boom. Right, new desktop. I'm just going to copy everything here and just like, oh, what is this? Wait, what is this? Oh, okay, I'm going to just like copy it and put this into here, right? I'm gonna Boy Who Cried Nazi. I'm gonna copy it here, put it here, right? I put it here. My face, I'm gonna put it here, right? I'm just gonna put everything here. Sometimes my laptop turns on, sometimes it just turns off, and that's like, when you, and this is why people have hoarder issues, right? Depressed people have hoarder issues, right? Is because they find stability and kind of like a peace of mind in familiarity, and what's more sort of like permanent than inanimate objects, and that's why they feel like they cannot throw it away, right? And it's sad, and I recognize I have these tendencies as well, right? And every time I want to write a book about this, which probably, just like here, no one wants to even have a whiff of it, right? When I feel comfortable, if you will. Oh, oh, I stopped seeing the need to write this book. You know? Do I log this out? I feel like I need to log out of these, man. Just log out. I feel like I need to log out, which is annoying. Nowadays, all I do when I come here, if my laptop manages to turn on, right, is that I I just listen to music on here, and that's all I do. I just listen to music. And even now, this has become harder and harder, as I don't know why it's just not fucking turning on and shit, right? Sometimes, and other times it turns on, but how long will this last? No one knows, right? I don't know. I have to make a decision on whether I need to have a password or not. Maybe I'll eat something before I go to sleep, because I'm just like, I guess that's what emotional eating sounds like, to have a flavor in your mouth. I know I have a problem. And I know this problem is literally eating me away. From the inside, anyway. And, these are some of the things that I do recognize, that people rather kind of like pretend that you're not suffering than recognize it. And the very sad thing is that for a majority of your life, you probably would also prefer that as well, because you don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to rock the status quo. And I understand how that feels, but if there's anything positive coming from this, or if there's a point to this, it's that I want you to accept reality, to be more gracious to yourself, because a lot of these things are people like us are very afraid to admit to, so I want you to just like admit to it, move on, and start to just be more gracious to yourself. Allow yourself to be more gracious to yourself and all this stuff, because you deserve it. I'm not telling this like, and of course, because this is quote like my channel, like I use it to kind of like I do talk about this, the vent and all that shit, but yeah, at the same time, I guess in a weird twisted way, I want you to accept what you are, and not like in the context of, depression is your identity, even though ironically and tragically enough, that usually ends up being the case, because depression does take up your whole sort of like depression does take up your life. So I understand why people would feel that way and shit, and why in the world does this allume. This is annoying. So look at you. Okay, either way, man. I think I should collect these. So I have this allume stone. It's one of the best things I've discovered for your underarm smell. But the bad part is that it just like keeps flaking on me. No, probably store this somewhere so that I can just add water to it and just apply it to my underarm. Do I have extra anything at all? I hope so. But either way, man, I guess this is all I want to say. I probably want to stay longer, but I don't want to just like depress myself but by this like very depressing topic. Like, I don't want to depress myself to a stupor, basically. So, you know what? I am going to take something that I can, okay, I'm gonna take some sort of container. which I don't have right now. Oh dear. I'm gonna take some sort of container to kind of like contain this, and then I'm gonna use this alum powder and add some water to it and apply it to my underarms because I deserve it. Alum is good for underarm, like it's actually not unhealthy for your underarm smell, and then but the bad thing is that you need to have patience with it, and it seems to leak everywhere. So that's unfortunate. So you guys take care of yourselves, please. Be gracious to yourself as usual. I always say that because like I know more than anyone, you know. Just if you're not gracious to yourself, like just how bad it can get. You know, I know it's an everyday thing. I just want you to stop sort of like ignoring reality, if you will, and start to just like move on with your life. And move on in a sense that I mean like move on as in like please just like try to move on, you know? Just try to move on. In the sense like you have been spending this subconsciously spending so much space in your brain to just like avoid certain topics, avoid certain feelings, avoid certain sort of like things that you don't want to kind of like think about that ironically take up a lot of space in your brain, because that's what avoidance eventually does, is like taking a loan on your mental health, but eventually you can't, you know, pay back the interest because like most of the time unfortunately it just doesn't pay off for people like us, you know. if, if you're kind of like staving off a little bit of mental health to achieve something, right, that you can actually achieve, maybe it's kind of like justified, but this is like a loan to survive, and loans like this are very unfortunately very far and few and far between that you will gain enough interest, I guess, to pay back that loan. So again, man, I don't know what's up, but be gracious to yourselves, please. Be gracious to yourself. It's something that I just keep repeating because I wasn't gracious to myself. I took everything like so fucking seriously. Every time I failed, it feels like a death sentence for a long time, and it fucked up my brain. Okay, it fucked up my brain. It fucked my brain right straight up, and I don't want that for you. So please take care of yourselves, okay? I know I've said goodbye like probably like 5 minutes now, but I do mean it. I do, man. I do mean it. Take care of yourselves, okay? You know I love you. I don't care if you're a guy. No homo. Just kidding. Love you all, man. Almost. After all, you don't love what you don't know. So, you guys take care of yourselves. I'm gonna try to have a little bit of fun. If my laptop poops again, I don't know what to do, but whatever, right? See you around, man. Take care.